Alright guys, what is going on? Welcome to the fourth episode of Press X or Press Cross podcast. I think that's how I'm going to start the intro of the podcast. Hopefully audio-wise everything is good and you guys can hear me. Feel free to let me know in the chat if there are any audio issues. And I appreciate all of you guys being here, everybody who showed up. I think it's going to be a pretty good show. Not too long, definitely not as long as last week's show, but we do have some interesting topics to go over and discuss here. And I'm sure, as most of you can see, I have some more gameplay footage of Zombie Army 4 in the background. This is a game that I've been playing and I've really been enjoying it, honestly. So you'll probably see that in the coming weeks, but we'll have some other gameplay to put up there as well. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be interested in seeing possibly some Dreams gameplay footage at some point. Some of the games we can find on there. And so, as you guys are filing in, if you could be sure to hit the like button here on the stream to help it out. Not only does it help the stream out significantly, but it's an easy way for you to let me know that you do enjoy this podcast. And so, as I said, we do have some pretty interesting topics to go over tonight. Most of them are PlayStation related. Actually, I'd say probably all of them are PlayStation related. And that's something that I still kind of want to figure out with this podcast. I want to figure out exactly how much stuff we're going to talk about that isn't necessarily PlayStation related, but just gaming related in general. But yeah, so let's kick it off here with the first topic, and I think this is probably the most significant thing that has happened this week in regards to PlayStation, the most interesting rumor that has come out, because as I'm sure most of you know, it's just, week after week, there's more and more rumors, more and more leaks, and it's just going to be that way until Sony decides to actually come out and say something official and announce their event. And I think you guys know what I'm talking about here. It has to do with that Bloomberg report that came out. Talks about the cost of the PlayStation 5 being about $450 in terms of production, based off of the components and everything that Sony plans to have inside of this console. And there was a lot of really interesting things with this Bloomberg article. And in fact, I don't think I even covered every single thing that was discussed in it, because it was a pretty big report. But the most significant thing for sure has to do with the cost to produce the PlayStation 5 being $450. And apparently Bloomberg has some, inside sources that they believe are very credible. In fact, I believe they went on record saying that their sources are internally over there at Sony. They're pretty high up. So it's, it is a rumor. It's hard to tell if we can really believe everything that's being said. I personally do believe it, because it just seems like it really explains a lot when it comes to why Sony has been so quiet. But, the big thing that people are wondering now is how much exactly is this console going to be. I know that this is something we seemingly talk about week over week, but we keep getting new information, again, new reports, and just new information that really adds to the speculation here. And if I'm being honest, based off of everything we've heard, it seems to me that this console is going to be $500. Now, where the conversation gets really interesting, in my opinion, is you see a situation where Sony could opt to do a $400 console, but they would have to take a pretty massive loss, because something I didn't really understand or realize when I first saw that $450 price, that's how much it costs for Sony to produce a PlayStation 5 unit. I didn't really take into account like the shipping costs, the marketing, the design material cost, everything else that's associated with it that's just outside the cost of the actual box itself. And I kind of realized that if they were to go for a $400 price tag, they would be taking a pretty significant loss. Now, it's not to say that they haven't done that in the past or that they wouldn't be willing to do that again, because they certainly would, or at least you would imagine they would. But I just have to imagine that at this point, everything is pointing to a $500 PlayStation 5. And so Where it gets interesting is I've seen people mention that the reason why Sony is now deciding to take the wait and see approach when it comes to the Xbox Series X and how they're trying to figure out what Microsoft is doing or waiting for Microsoft to come out here and announce something first is because they know that the PlayStation 5 is actually less powerful than the Xbox Series X. And the last thing they want is to have a situation where Microsoft announces the Series X is going to be $500 and it's going to be, this powerful and this amount of teraflops and all that stuff. And then Sony's going to come out and they're going to announce a $500 price tag so that they don't, have to eat so much of the cost, but it is going to be less powerful than the Xbox Series X. And in other words, it might turn out to be a situation where Microsoft isn't. Maybe they are willing to take more of a loss than Sony is in this area. And so this is something that I'm going to be paying close attention to. And to be honest, I kind of believe this because it seems like that is something Sony would want to do. It seems like something that would be in their best interest is simply just saying, look, we know that the PS5, it's going to be a great console. It's going to be powerful, and we're going to see developers do some great things with it, but it's just going to be a bad look for Sony if the Series X is, for some reason, significantly more powerful. I don't know if that's what's going to happen or not, and it ends up being the same price as the PS5 if the PS5 is less powerful. Now, I know we've had a lot of conversations about the PlayStation 5 and the rumors regarding it being more powerful and all this stuff, but we just don't know. And I just have to imagine that based off of everything that Microsoft has been saying and doing, it just wouldn't surprise me if the Xbox Series X does end up being more powerful. Now, as to whether or not that's going to be significantly more powerful or slightly more powerful, I don't know. I don't think either way it's going to matter too much. I think it will really I think the big thing that's going to matter is how powerful it is exactly and how much Microsoft plans to charge customers for the Series X. And so I just thought that this was a really interesting thing that came up. Something else that I didn't talk about in my video going over this that is actually really important. I must have just overlooked it the first time when skimming through all the information, is one of the things that this insider who was talking to Bloomberg, one of the interesting things they had to say is that apparently the PlayStation 5 could actually run into manufacturing issues, thus meaning we could see less PlayStation 5s at launch than we're expecting. There may be some availability issues, and not everybody might be able to get their hands on a PS5 when they want it. And because of this, we could see this impact PlayStation 5 exclusive games. If Sony is trying to prepare for this potential situation where they do not have enough supply to, satiate the demand, then they're going to have to make a decision how many games are they going to make truly exclusive to the PlayStation 5, because the idea is that Sony wants to have some, I guess what we would call true PlayStation 5 exclusive games at launch or around launch to incentivize people to go out there and buy PS5s. But if there's not enough PS5s to go around, then at that point you're just potentially hurting your software sales and your services and everything else. And so that's something that I didn't really think about that was actually brought up in this article, and I didn't talk about in my video, that this person who was speaking to Bloomberg, they claim that Sony is, because of the issues that they're running into manufacturing, again, if this rumor is to be believed, seems like it is a reliable source here from Bloomberg, seems like most of their games are going to be cross-gen. Now, they did not, and this is the important part here, they did not say whether or not it is going to be third-party games or first-party games. They basically just said PlayStation games in general. Just, that could mean anything. But I have to imagine that this is definitely affecting how Sony is planning to, roll out their exclusive games. This could even potentially cause some games to be delayed until Sony feels confident in being able to, have enough consoles to sell to everybody who wants them. There's a lot of different, moving parts here and a lot of things that are going on internally over there at Sony that are, I don't want to say they're problems, but, to a certain extent they are. I mean, if Sony's facing a, supply issue here, then that's a problem, and they have to figure out how they're going to solve that problem. Obviously, it's not something that's going to last forever, but they may have to change their approach to the first year of the PlayStation 5 if this is something that continues to persist or it's something that they actually run into head on at the end of this year. I've seen some people mention, and this is some conversation that has been persisting for the past couple of weeks now. I've seen some people mentioning that they think this is going to cause the PlayStation 5 to be delayed to some capacity. I'm not expecting that. Something they did say in this Bloomberg article is that the coronavirus specifically, as of right now, is not posing any problem for Sony's plans throughout the year for the PlayStation 5. It doesn't mean it won't later on, but as of right now. So that's good news in general. And so, yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm thinking we're going to get a $500 PlayStation 5, and as to whether or not it's going to be significantly less powerful, well, here's the real question. If the PS5 is a little bit less powerful than the Xbox Series X, and they're both $500, is that really going to negatively impact sales of the PlayStation 5? I don't think it is. And I'm just being honest. I'm not trying to be like a fanboy when I say this, but I genuinely do believe that Sony just has that, I don't know, they've won over, I think, a lot of future PlayStation 5 investors, I guess you could say, this generation with a lot of the games they released, like God of War, Spider-Man, and many others that they're, waiting for sequels for. And so because of that alone, I think a lot of people are going to upgrade to the PS5, even if it is a little bit less powerful. But, you always have to remember, too, that there's, 108 million PlayStation 4s out there in the wild. A lot of these people are, they are invested in the ecosystem. They have a lot of digital games, a lot of digital content. They have a lot of friends that are also playing on this platform. And so there's a really good chance that power is not going to matter power difference, I should say, is really not going to matter as much. And I know that this is just sounding like to some people like, oh, you're just damage controlling something you don't even know yet. We don't know. We don't know if there's going to be a power difference between these consoles. But when you talk about price, you have to be aware that, not only are there apparently component shortages, and I don't want to say shortages, but basically the price of some of the components that Sony wants to put inside the PlayStation 5, it's going up because of the demand and the timing. The next generation of smartphones are coming out, and there's some specific components that Sony wants in the PS5 that other companies want in their phones, and it's going to cause these manufacturing companies to have to probably work overtime to meet these demands and whatnot. And so the price of it is naturally going to go up. That is just the nature of supply and demand. So it's going to be a really interesting situation. I had to take some time here to talk about this topic because it's easily the biggest thing that has come out this week. You've seen a lot of people reporting on it, a lot of, not just people, but a lot of outlets. And I think that's important to pay attention to because when you see something going around like this where pretty much everybody is talking about it, this is definitely a case of where there's smoke, there's fire. And it seems like this is a legitimate rumor for once. And so, yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how much this console ends up being. We don't know the final price yet. I know that some people are, I guess, getting a little bit upset that I put that in the title of this podcast, but we're just talking about what the final price of the PS5 is going to be. So we're going to move on to the next topic, but before we do that, again, we have about 386 people watching. Apparently, I'm starting to think that streaming on Sunday evenings maybe is not so great. People are wondering why I'm doing this. Last week it was during the Oscars. This week apparently it's during the NBA All-Star Game, so obviously not great. But as of right now, this is the only time I have to be able to do a stream like this, so that's why. But in the future, the time slot could change. I just want you guys to be aware of that. But before moving on here, 388 people now. Hit the like button if you are enjoying the podcast or if you do appreciate the content. It really helps it out. And as I always say, it's an easy way for you guys to let me know that you are enjoying it. So just take a sip of water here. Came prepared this time, guys. All right, second topic of the night. We're going to talk about Dreams. And I wanted to talk about this game. I had to talk about this game because I think it's surprising people. Like, I really think Dreams is surprising people. It's surprising me. I don't want to say that the reviews of the game are surprising me because, we know that Media Molecule, they have a good reputation and they've done some great things in the past. Everybody loves Little Big Planet, and that's what they're known for. And I think a lot of people were really on the fence with Dreams, mainly because it seems like an intimidating game if you're somebody who wants to create stuff. Not so intimidating if you're somebody like me and your interest lies in that you want to just actually, play the game and play other stuff that people create. And let me see here. Mr. Hamster, you say you need to get some sleep. You sound tired, MBG. Do I sound tired? I don't mean to sound tired. It has been a long day. It's been a long week. Maybe I am a little tired, but right after this podcast is done, I will definitely look into getting some sleep for sure. But I appreciate that super chat, Mr. Hamster, and I appreciate your support. You're a very loyal fan of the channel here, and that does not go unnoticed. Thank you. Fearful Tuna, you're saying show us your face. Well, as I've said before, I actually have shown my face in some of my earliest videos that are no longer public, but as I say, maybe when we hit 100,000 subscribers, I'll do some kind of face reveal special. Don't hold me to that. I am not making any promises right now, but we'll see. Either way, I really appreciate that super chat, Fearful Tuna. But getting back to talking about Dreams here, Dreams is out. It's getting rave reviews, and it's currently sitting at a 91 on Metacritic with 22 total reviews, and there's not a single review that's mixed or negative. Now, that is impressive. I don't care if people say, 22 reviews is not a lot. Listen, 22 positive reviews, it's just universal. Like, everybody who took the time to play this game and review it, they have nothing but good things to say about it. And what makes me really kind of pay attention to this game is not only that I do want to play it and I want to try it myself, and I've seen some of the stuff that people have created. It's absolutely insane. I actually made a video on that showcasing some of the stuff that people made, so go check that out if you haven't. But I want to know what Sony's plans are with Dreams. I believe, was it Shuhei Yoshida who went on record saying that they plan to support Dreams for about 10 years or something like that, where, we've heard that before from other developers, but when you look at a game like Dreams, I really do think that Sony should definitely double down on it after seeing the positive reception it's gotten. I'm sure that the positive reception and the fact that it's gotten a 91 on Metacritic and I think it's gotten more people talking about it. I think it's going to help boost sales somewhat, and I think that's the big concern with a game like Dreams is how well is it going to sell. It's a $40 game, but that has yet to be seen. We got Judson Watkins. You say you should know the console components are manufactured in China or built in China. The coronavirus may affect the console and phones may delay it. Yeah, going back to what we were talking about, that is correct, actually. That is something we have been talking about. I think I actually have a video dedicated to it where there's been a big concern that the coronavirus is actually going to affect these consoles, and not just the consoles, but like you say, smartphones and everything else. And almost all of this stuff is manufactured in China. And it's a pretty serious thing, but yeah, we're going to have to pay a close eye on that, pay close attention to it, see if this coronavirus, if it's going to slow down or not. Hopefully it will, obviously. It's not a good thing at all, but hopefully we won't see it affect any type of, major production in the future. But I appreciate that super chat, Judson. I really do. And going back to Dreams here, I saw, I think it was Push Square, or I think it was them. They wrote up an article where they were saying that Dreams should come pre-installed on every PlayStation 5, and I think that would actually be a really great thing. Basically make it like a free-to-play game, and I don't know how they would monetize it, that's the only thing. I mean, I guess you could technically say they could monetize it by making people buy PlayStation 5. Well, not making people buy PlayStation 5s, but hey, you buy a PlayStation 5, you get Dreams for free. I think that would be really cool. But one thing I know, or I can say based off of everything I've read that Media Molecule has said and the response that Sony's had to this, I've seen some people being a little bit negative towards Dreams, saying because of how long it was in development, Sony's probably not happy with it, and they're not happy with Media Molecule, and there's a chance they may even close or shut Media Molecule down because of this. I don't think that's the case at all. I definitely don't think that's going to happen. I think that they're in this for the long haul. As to what Media Molecule is going to do next, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, but they should definitely continue to support Dreams, and I haven't gotten my copy yet. I will be getting it in the coming weeks, and when I do, I'm going to be, like I said, just so interested to see the stuff that people have created on this game, because when I say it's a game that's not for everybody, I said this in my video talking about it. One of the top comments was somebody said that they didn't agree with that because they do believe, considering it's a game where you can play anybody's creation, it is a game for everyone. And I agree with that. In that sense, it is. But what I mean is that the game on a surface level, it's just not as appealing because it's not a traditional game. So it's a difficult game to kind of market. I mean, it's easy to market in the sense that, look, you can play thousands upon thousands of user-created games. But even then, that's still a little bit of a hard sell because some people, it just sounds a little bit like, too good to be true, I guess, for them, where it's like they're going to feel like 99% of those games are not going to be good. And I mean, the truth is, it is user-created content, so yeah, a lot of the stuff you play probably won't be that good, but you will see some stuff, and you have seen some stuff that people have created that's just, it's almost, it's like unbelievable. It's like a game within itself, right? Now, I'm not sitting here saying that if you buy Dreams, you can play games that are made by people that are essentially equivalent to like full-blown $60 AAA games. I'm not trying to say that. That's a little bit extreme. It could get to that point. We don't know yet, but I don't know. I heard that apparently Media Molecule is saying that Dreams is almost ready for PSVR or the VR version, if I think I read that headline correctly. And that's awesome too. That's a really good way for them to not only just expand the game, but also, feed into kind of building up PlayStation VR even more. And so I really wanted to take time to talk about this game because you don't see too many people talking about it, and I am a PlayStation-centric channel here, and I'm not going to lie to you, at first, I wasn't really that interested in Dreams, and now that it's come out and I saw the reviews it was getting, this is where reviews do play a pretty big role in catching some people's attention. Like mine, reviews aren't everything, but when I see a game that I'm not that interested in, and then suddenly I'm seeing it sitting at a 91 on Metacritic, I'm like, oh, it's that good? Okay, let me pay a little bit more attention to it. And then I see some of the stuff people are creating, and now I'm like, I got to try this game out. I got to try it out. So, yeah, let's see here. Judson Watkins, once again, I appreciate the super chat. Say, you can say Dreams is a child-friendly Gmod. Yeah, that's actually funny you mentioned that because I was talking about this game to a friend recently, and that's exactly what they said. That's the first thing they said. They were like, oh, it's like Gary's mod. I was like, well, yeah, in a way it kind of is. It's just user-created content. It's essentially like, the interesting thing about Dreams is it's essentially like a set of tools. It's almost like an engine. It's almost like a game engine. You know what I mean? And it's just so... You got to give... And let me end it here before moving to the next topic. You got to give Sony credit with a game like Dreams. I mean, them being willing to greenlight Dreams, knowing that it's such a tough sell, like Media Molecule basically saying, look, we basically want to make a game engine that's accessible for everybody and that anybody can, learn how to use it and make whatever they want from it. And Sony's just like, okay, go for it. I'm sure that nobody at Sony or Media Molecule expected it to take this long for the game to actually, come to fruition and finally hit a launch date and be completed. But again, you have to give Sony credit. They didn't cancel it. They saw it through. And I mean, to be honest, when you look at a game like Dreams, you just don't see... I just have a hard time imagining other publishers in the industry not only, first of all, allowing a game like this to be made, but giving it that type of time, and then still, coming out here saying that they plan to support it for 10 years. You have to give them credit for that. And this is one of the things that people really love about Sony and PlayStation, including myself, is that they do these things that sometimes don't even make sense, but it's like, wow, I'm really glad you're doing this. So I'm not saying they're perfect, but Mr. Hamster says, play a Skylanders level in Dreams with Devil Child. I'm sure you will feel better, man. I don't know. To be honest, Mr. Hamster, I don't know if that would make me feel better, but maybe it could. So when I do get Dreams, I will probably look for some Skylanders levels, okay? And if I do, I will record myself playing them, and I will have that on some footage here in the background in the future. I mean, I'm going to have Dreams footage in the future, but that's something I could definitely look into. I appreciate that super chat, Mr. Hamster. Yeah, I see some people mentioning Project Spark, and that's a funny thing too, because Devil Child says it would make you feel better, Devil Child. Okay, well, it's not always about you now, is it? But I know you're just trolling, Mr. Hamster. It's all in the name of fun here, but yeah, Project Spark, that's an interesting one, because that was something that Microsoft tried to do at the beginning of this generation with the Xbox One, and we all saw how that went. And again, like, you know, I'm not trying to compare the two. I mean, it's kind of hard not to, but Dreams, in my opinion, is a game, it's like Project Spark done right. You know what I mean? It's like when you have the right talent and you give it the time it needs and the budget it needs, and you let the team see it through to the end, you get a final product that looks something like Dreams. And, you know, we know that Media Molecules as a team there, they're very unique. They're very different. And, you know, I think it's only fair that they're allowed to express that in the type of games that they make. And I think Dreams is a perfect expression of that. So I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. We need more stuff like that. And, you know, I can't help it. Like, I still find myself way more hyped for games like The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima. But Dreams is a really solid way for Sony to kick off 2020, which is going to be a fantastic year for PlayStation 4, no doubt. So we have about 415 people watching. If you guys could do me a favor and hit the like button on this to really help it out. If you guys knew how much likes help out videos here on YouTube or content, it would blow your mind, but it is a critical part. That's why you hear people ask for likes so much. It's not just because they want to feel good. There's actually an algorithmic reason for it. So do me a favor and do that if you could. It really helps it out. But we're going to move on to the third topic here, and this is one that I am excited to talk about because, you know, we are close, guys. We are very, very close to the release of The Last of Us Part 2. And Naughty Dog gave us the first update, I believe, since I think maybe September of 2019. And I have a whole video dedicated to it, but to kind of just... and real quick here, I see some people asking what game I have playing in the background. This is called Zombie Army 4 Dead War. It's actually a really great game. It just recently came out. I see that some of you guys in the chat have me covered on that one, but really enjoying this game here. It's just a 4-player co-op, and you can play it solo and single player as well. Zombie shooter game, third-person shooter game based in World War II. Really, really fun game. If you're looking for something like that, definitely check it out. You have a great time, especially if you have some friends to play with. But talking here about The Last of Us Part 2 and Naughty Dog, they gave us an update recently, and one of the things they said in this update is they said that they're in the final stretch of production and putting the finishing touches on The Last of Us Part 2. And so that tells me that they are certainly getting ready to ramp up the marketing. I think that's something we can expect. They also opened up some more LE editions for people to pre-order. I think they're probably gone by now. So that was cool of them to do as well. And one of the coolest things they did is they gave away another free theme, a dynamic theme, which was awesome as well. But not too long after this... and I actually made a video on this today, but again, I want to make sure I cover it here in the podcast because I know some people who come to watch the podcast, they may miss some of the videos. But the co-director of The Last of Us Part 2, his name is Anthony Newman. He says that pretty much Naughty Dog is looking to redefine AAA gaming in 2020, the AAA game space. And, you know, as much as I want to believe or convince myself that this is just, you know, an employee at Naughty Dog, a developer at Naughty Dog who's extremely proud of what they're making and maybe just getting a little bit ahead of themselves, or maybe being a little bit, I've even seen some people say that that's a little bit arrogant of him to say that. I actually, maybe I'm buying into it too much, but that gets me genuinely excited. Like, it really does, because it makes me wonder, like, what exactly are they doing in this game that leaves the co-director confident enough to say something like that? I mean, again, maybe he's just being like, yeah, we're Naughty Dog. We're gonna, we're gonna just completely, rewrite and redefine AAA gaming, and he's just doing it to maybe create some conversation. And if he did, well, I guess he succeeded. But I don't know, man. I think most people would agree with me when I say that Naughty Dog is one of those developers where if they say something like that, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You've earned that. Like, Naughty Dog as a developer has earned that. And even if I was somebody who didn't play Naughty Dog games, I would still, pay attention to what he's saying, because it's like, okay, these are extremely talented developers. These are people who have raised the bar in the past. And I've seen some people even say that this is exactly what they did with The Last of Us Part 1. They redefined what a AAA game could be in certain ways. And I agree with that. I mean, The Last of Us is such a powerful game. And I find myself, occasionally watching these trailers back when I'm putting them in some of the videos that I'm talking about, and I don't know, man, it's going to be just a really insane ride when this game comes out, and I'm waiting for the day that Sony gives us the clear signal that marketing is in full swing for The Last of Us Part 2, because when that happens, we're going to be ramping up the hype here on the channel, and that's a game that we're going to talk about for quite some time. I don't do many theory videos, or in fact, I don't think I've ever really done any videos talking about deeply in video game stories, or really going into conversation about plots and theories and characters and all this stuff. But one of my most successful videos I ever put on my channel here actually had to do with me talking about The Last of Us Part 2 in the last trailer we got, where it revealed Joel, and how I was talking about how, Naughty Dog is, in my opinion, clearly misleading us with a lot of the stuff they're showing, and there's going to be some major twists. And that's just how interested I am in this game, where I want to talk about that stuff. I don't want to talk about it too much right now, because we still have some time to wait, and, I want to wait until we get closer, but it just kind of, in my opinion, highlights just how excited I really am for this game. And yeah, I know I'm not the only one. It's going to be a really interesting time when that game drops here on the channel. It's going to be, I mean, could you imagine if that game dropped and it got like a 70 on Metacritic? Could you imagine that? See, that just sounds impossible. It just sounds impossible. I mean, based off of everything we've seen, we know a game like The Last of Us Part 2, I think it's going to set a new bar in many ways for some stuff. So, yeah, we're going to move on to the next topic here. Once again, guys, do me a favor, hit the like button. Helps the videos out, helps the stream out. I'm going to take a drink of water here, check out the chat. Yeah, I see you're saying that Naughty Dog is going to show more of The Last of Us Part 2 at PAX. I know they're going to have a playable demo. I don't necessarily know if they're going to have anything more than that. They might. They could very well end up having a new trailer or something like that. Actually, if you think about it, it would kind of be time for them to show a new trailer at this point. So we're going to have to see about that. I hope they do, because obviously that would get me excited, and I would love to see that. But do I like lemon with my water? No, I just plain water kind of guy, I don't mind lemons with my water, though. I mean, if you go out to a restaurant or something and they have that, that's fine. Not relevant to the conversation, but still, maybe worth answering there. Moving on to the next topic here, and this is a pretty significant one. And this is going to, I think, kind of really back up something that Sony has announced earlier this year, that being that they are not attending E3. Apparently, Geoff Keighley, yes, that Geoff Keighley, is not going to be attending E3 for the first time in 25 years. So we actually put out a tweet And it reads, I have made the difficult decision to decline to produce the E3 Coliseum. For the first time in 25 years, I will not be participating in E3. I look forward to supporting the industry in other ways and at other events in the future. And he also went on to say that he does not feel comfortable participating given what he knows about the show, because people were asking him, and he, encouraged people to ask him why he's not going to E3 for the first time ever. And, that was one of the things he said. He doesn't feel comfortable. And so, a lot of people were, I don't want to say a lot, but at least some people were basically making it sound like Sony's making some kind of big mistake by not attending E3. And, they bailed out last year, and now they're not going to be at E3 2020. Arguably the biggest year where you would think they would have to be or would want to be at E3. And I think most people are aware that E3 is just not what it used to be. But when you look at somebody like Geoff Keighley, okay, you have to imagine that for him to just not want to be part of it, they must be doing something really, really bizarre, really different. And the thing that really caught my eye here about what he said is when he said that he plans to support the industry in other ways and at other, shows and events in the future. Now, we're going to get to that in a second, but JD Gamer, I appreciate that super chat. You say, MBG off topic, but how do you vet your sources before you bring them to the podcast? For instance, all the insiders said there will be a February event. Will you still listen to those same insiders? No. What I try to do is basically figure out who's saying it and like who they are or where they stand. Like a lot of the, and it's an interesting question because I do get a lot of flack when I make my rumor or leak videos, and there have been times in the past where I've maybe been a little bit too gullible. The most recent example was on the Japanese PlayStation website. Somebody basically made a fake image that started to float around the internet that showed a dev kit PS5, and I found out not too long after actually putting that video up that I was just basically fooled. Like, I was gullible. I didn't realize how easy it was for somebody to do that. And that was like a really bad, I would say it was a bad video because my intent with it was not bad, but I didn't do enough due diligence there, and I ate that one. You know what I mean? And I had to update the title and everything, and I didn't want to have to remove it because I spent half the video speculating about the design of the console itself, but I had to let everybody know that my bad, I didn't do enough research on this one. But when it comes to insiders and stuff like that, I always try to see, for example, if you go to Nioh or you go to Reset Era, we can't know for sure, at least I can't, but I really am only going to pay attention if somebody is saying something, like they say how I have information about the PS5 or Xbox Series X or whatever, and I'm an insider, if they're verified by the individuals on Reset Era or Nioh, because they do try to make sure that there isn't just random people left and right doing anything they want. They try their best to verify them. Now, here's the thing. Just because they verify those sources doesn't mean they're 100% legit. Okay, so I'm putting a little bit of faith in their process. And so, with that in mind, I'm well aware, and this is why I always say in all my videos talking about leaks and rumors, it might not be real. It might not be a real thing. It might be complete BS. But one thing I do know is that people are very interested in hearing about the rumors and the leaks. And so because of that, I don't just take anything, because there have been quite a few things that have been presented my way that I'm like, I don't feel comfortable making a video on this. And anytime I've talked about something that I was pretty sure this most likely isn't real, but it's nice to see, it's nice to fantasize about, I've made that clear as well. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but I feel like that was an interesting question because a lot of people do actually ask me about that. And I don't have my own personal sources that I would come on here and say, hey guys, I'm going to tell you right now, Sony's going to acquire a new studio, or they're going to announce this game, and be but I have my own sources and I'm not going to reveal them. I don't do that because I just don't trust that. You know what I mean? If somebody came to me with that information and they claim that they were on the inside, I wouldn't trust that. I'd just be listen, unless you can literally prove to me something, but even then, I don't want to put my reputation on the line like that because it's just not worth it. So I just try to go based off of what other people say and just give my thoughts on it, like whether or not I believe it could be real. Like going back to the first topic we talked about, it's coming from Bloomberg, and Bloomberg's pretty high up there, and they've been kind of hit or miss, but it's more likely that they're not BSing, you know what I mean? Because it's coming from Bloomberg, you can at least bet at least something we're talking about here is true. So, okay, appreciate that super chat, by the way. But getting back to Geoff Keighley not attending E3 here, this is a big deal because Sony is not attending E3, and Sony, I'm telling you right now, they're never going to attend E3 again. And when Geoff Keighley says here that he's going to be supporting the industry in other ways and at other events in the future, if you guys remember when the PlayStation 5 event was in like full force, like the conversation surrounding it, I believe like 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, I think it was like 2 weeks ago at this point, Geoff Keighley put out a tweet where he said he got a really cool phone call about something, and he's excited about it. Now, that's all he really said, but the timing of it, I mean, everybody's mind was on PlayStation 5, the PlayStation 5 event. So for him to say something like that, and now we know a couple weeks later that he's not attending E3, so that's definitely not the phone call he got. A lot of people are thinking that the event that Sony's going to have, Geoff Keighley's going to be hosting it, and that's what I'm expecting as well. And, I mean, I don't think it was necessarily a situation, I mean, it may... this is just purely speculative on my part, but maybe this was a situation where Sony's like, listen, Geoff, we really like you, and we think you're a great presenter. In fact, we think you're so great, we want you to present our reveal event, because he did a really good job with Gamescom last year, and he does the Game Awards, and they're extremely successful. But they're like, but we're going to have to ask that you don't go to E3. Now, obviously, I don't think Sony would do that, but, it's just... I don't know. I felt like this was kind of a big deal because this is like, why would Geoff Keighley, of all people, why would he not be there? It really makes you think that E3 itself, even putting the PlayStation 5 reveal event to the side, E3 itself is just not what it used to be. And there's a lot of people who don't want to accept that. There's a lot of people who actually kind of make fun of people if they say that E3 is like dying or something, but... these people are, they're going to be in the minority soon because I like E3. Like, that's the thing. I like E3, and I don't want to see it change to something that's not E3. I don't want to see it change to something that's just trying to, like, appeal to people, in any possible way. I want it to be about games, but the ESA, they seem to not be able to really... be able to save this sinking ship, at least as of right now. Who knows? We could be wrong. There's still a lot of publishers going there. We know Microsoft is going to be there. But I think like Microsoft does their own thing like across the street from E3 or something like that. It's really weird, really bizarre. I don't know, but Phil Spencer still voices his support for E3, and so I'm just kind of left here thinking to myself, I don't know. I mean, one of the other topics I have here, and I'm actually just going to skip right to this topic now and kind of blend it in with the fourth topic we're talking about here, was I just wanted to briefly talk about Sony not talking about the PlayStation 5. I mean, this is a really strange thing that I wasn't necessarily anticipating. I was so sure that Sony was going to have some type of PlayStation-related event in February. And here we are now. We're in mid-February, guys, and Sony still hasn't said anything. And a lot of people are now saying it's not going to happen till March. And to be honest, I'm beginning to believe that. I've actually seen some people say that they're not expecting an event until like April or May. Now, I don't know about that. I really, really think Sony could run into a serious issue if they decided to, for some reason, have their PS5 reveal event during the same month that they're going to be launching probably their biggest game of the generation, maybe other than Spider-Man, although I think The Last of Us is bigger than... I mean, in my mind, it feels bigger than Spider-Man, but I wouldn't understand why Sony would do that in the same month. I feel like they would just be stepping on their own toes at that point. They'd be stepping on their own feet, tripping themselves up. Unless they have some type of like integrated plan to market The Last of Us Part 2 alongside the PS5, that could very well be something that, something they're planning on doing. But as for PlayStation having their reveal event in March, yeah, it can't be this month unless they announce it tomorrow, right? Again, I mean, they could do it in a state of play, which means that they could close that gap in like when they would have to announce it. But I don't think it's going to be this month. I feel like Sony definitely would have said something by now, and we're getting reports that they're playing the waiting game right now. They're playing the wait and see. Now, as to whether or not that means they're holding off on their event, I don't know. I mean, that could be a situation. We could be looking at a situation where Sony's running into some issues internally, and everything maybe is getting delayed or pushed back behind, and they're behind schedule in terms of like, well, we wanted to do the reveal in February, but we're having some component issues with shipment and, manufacturing and whatnot. So now we're going to have to push it back until we, get everything. And a lot of people are saying that Microsoft isn't going to be announcing the price of the Xbox Series X until at least E3. I highly, highly doubt Sony would wait until E3 to reveal the PlayStation 5. I mean, who knows? Maybe they could. We don't know. But I think that's really doubtful. However, I was thinking in my head, and this is something that's kind of funny in my opinion, I could see a situation where Sony has a PlayStation 5 event in March, and it's huge, right? It's absolutely huge, but one of the key things they don't talk about is the final price of the PlayStation 5. What I could see them do at this point is, after Sony shows off the PS5, we then move on to E3. Microsoft has their big show there, and obviously the Xbox Series X plays a huge role in that. And then they reveal the price of it, and it being $500, and then that's when Sony makes the executive decision for $49.99. The next day they would announce the price of the PS5. Sony would do something like that. And actually, I could see them even doing a state of play, maybe the day after E3 or a couple days after E3, after Microsoft announces the price of the Series X. You could see them just being just like they did in the past, just being like, well, we're going to be $50 cheaper. And that's a possibility. But I'm telling you right now, and this is just, again, going back to the first topic. I don't mean to keep jumping topics here, but this is why Sony is playing the waiting game. Okay, this is why. Because they just want to make sure that they don't mess up. And a way that they could mess up is pricing the PlayStation 5 in a not so appealing way. And that's going to be heavily reliant on their main competition, that being Xbox. And so, yeah. But moving right along here, and I think this is going to be the final topic of the night. Well, actually, no, we have two more topics. This one's just kind of random, but I felt as though I had to take a little bit of time to talk about it here. It has to do with Nioh 2, the upcoming PS4 game. I don't think it's like PS4 exclusive. I think it's also releasing on PC, but it's definitely like a big game that people are going to be playing on PS4. Nioh 1 did really well, and apparently Nioh 2 has gone gold, and this game is releasing March 13th, and I'm actually looking forward to it. I haven't played it yet. I've seen it, and a lot of people have told me, because I'm a fan of Dark Souls and Bloodborne, that I need to give this game a try. And so I just thought I would let you guys know that. We do have a little bit more information, but let me get to Mr. Hamster here once again. Appreciate the super chat. Please do a reaction video for the next State of Play. Well, I can promise you that I will be. You better believe that whenever we get the next State of Play, I will be live streaming that, and we will do a live reaction together, and it's going to be really fun. In fact, anytime there's like a major event that I'm interested in, I do plan to, if I'm able to, live stream it here and experience it with you guys as well. So don't you worry about that, Mr. Hamster. We will certainly be doing that when the time comes. But getting back to Nioh 2 here, again, the game has gone gold. It's coming out March 13th, but Team Ninja, the developers who created Nioh, they actually went on record saying that they want to create a new IP for the PlayStation 5 next generation. They said they found pretty much great success with Nioh 1, and I'm sure they'll find success with Nioh 2 as well. And that's just something they want to do, and I think that that's actually a really good thing. I would love to see a new IP from them. I've heard that Nioh is really difficult, and I'm sure Nioh 2 is going to be just as hard. And as somebody who has completed the Dark Souls games, and I have beaten Bloodborne, and they were definitely tough, I got good, I guess you could say. I'm going to be interested to see just how difficult, Nioh 2 is going to be, and I'm looking forward to it. So it also says here that apparently they're going to have a new trial version of the game of Nioh 2 that's going to be available from February 25th to March 1st. And they say that there will be new weapons you can try, new bosses, new stages, and that you can also transfer your character, not progress, but your character itself to the final version of the game. So that's actually pretty cool. I see Trevor, you say MBG got good confirmed. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It was painful, but I did it. And so the final topic here of the night, we're going to be talking about how Sony has paid, apparently it came out that Sony paid $229 million for Insomniac Games. And while that seems like a lot of money based off of what I've looked into, apparently that's actually kind of like a steal. I mean, that's a lot of money in general for a developer, but when you consider that EA apparently bought Respawn Entertainment for $400 million, and then you think that Sony got Insomniac Games for almost half that, that seems like a steal to me. And one thing I wanted to talk about here, because I did make a dedicated video on this, but I wanted to add more to it, is that apparently some people are thinking that this is when Sony when Sony bought Insomniac Games, it's a clear sign that they want to get the next Spider-Man game out sooner rather than later. And this is really interesting to me because we have been hearing a few rumors here and there that apparently Spider-Man 2 or a sequel to Spider-Man PS4 has been in like full production ever since that game launched, or even before that game launched, because they already knew it was going to be a massive success. But it's almost like once Sony saw just how successful it was, they're like, we need to buy these guys right now and get them like full steam ahead on the next Spider-Man game. We've been hearing rumors that apparently Sony might try to have Spider-Man 2 out by holiday 2021 as their big holiday exclusive for that year, which I could see that happening. I think it's likely, and I do think that, them paying that amount of money to acquire them and just them acquiring them in general is a clear sign that they probably want Spider-Man to come out soon. Now, we've also heard the rumor that apparently there's a new Ratchet & Clank game. That rumor comes from Colin Moriarty, and he's definitely very reliable. And he just, I think, pretty much said, yeah, they're making another Ratchet & Clank, and he suspects it will be a launch title for the PlayStation 5, which would be pretty cool. And then one last thing I wanted to mention here about Insomniac Games that's kind of interesting is I've seen so many people talk about how they want to see Resistance come back to some extent, to some capacity when it comes to Insomniac Games, and now that they're owned by Sony. And apparently Insomniac Games has been doing a little bit of teasing on Twitter, nothing directly hinting at like a remastered collection or something, but they have been talking about Resistance, and some people are thinking that might be a sign that they're actually going to be doing some type of remastered collection or something along those lines. So that'll be interesting. I don't think I've ever played Resistance, but I would definitely be willing to try it out. Carlos Crespin, you say, do you think Sony is afraid of Microsoft? Well, first of all, thank you for the super chat. I don't want to say they're afraid of Microsoft. I think the situation is Sony is afraid of the mistakes they could potentially make by being overly confident or even arrogant, because this is something that Sony has acknowledged. Is they were aware that in the past with the PS3 they were arrogant, and it led to their close to their demise, basically, the demise of PlayStation. They had to make a massive comeback. I don't think that they're afraid. I think they're afraid of themselves, and they just want to make sure that they plan everything accordingly, and they're willing to wait and be patient and see what Microsoft does before just coming out full steam ahead and basically acting like nothing can touch them. Because even though many of us do believe that, like, oh, nothing can touch Sony because they're just so good, that's just that would be an arrogant attitude for them to have. So that's how I view it. Edgy Clementine, MBG, y'all missed fit very major. So I guess you're saying something very major. The $450 rumor, that $450 is just for buying components. The assembly, which will cost a lot, will be on top of the $450. Logistics, shipping will push the PS5 cost way over $500. Yeah, that is true. I mean, I mentioned that earlier in this during this podcast, but you're totally right. I mean, if that rumor is true, just for the components alone, yeah, it's gonna. It really depends on how much Sony's willing to eat in terms of the cost, And this is something that Hiroki Totoki, that is his name, I think the CFO of Sony, this is something he did talk about and did say when it came to, them talking about the price of the PlayStation 5 and why they're not talking about it yet or revealing it. They need to determine how much they're willing, how much of the cost they're willing to eat. And one of the ways they're going to be able to determine that is, not necessarily where they can cut costs, but instead they need to figure out where they can make up that cost. And clearly they're going to have to rely on PlayStation Network in a big, big way to do that. And Edgy Clementine, once again, appreciate the super chats here. You say $450 is not where the cost stops, it's where it starts. Assembly plus shipping, logistics, all on top of $450. Sony will bite on loss even with the $500. Yeah, you know what? You're probably right about that. That's something that I think I got wrong in my video talking about it, where I made it sound like Sony could sell it at a profit at $500, but I think that they would definitely be selling at a loss for quite some time, actually, before it could ever, if ever, become profitable at $500. And again, it just comes down to how much are they willing to eat on this. And, that comes down to how important they feel it is to really get these boxes in people's homes. So we're going to have to see about that, but I really do appreciate those super chats, Edgy Clementine. Joseph Levi, you say, do you think Sony will revive SOCOM? Well, I think they will. I think they are. We know that Guerrilla Games has a second team right now that is currently developing some type of multiplayer game. A lot of people are thinking it's going to be a new Killzone game, and that seems just as likely, maybe if not even more likely than a new SOCOM game. But we have heard that apparently Guerrilla Games, their second team, is actually working on a SOCOM reboot of some sort, and it's going to be cutting edge. And this would make some sense, because I think something that people forget is that sometime, I believe in 2018, Guerrilla Games, their second team, their B team, if you will, they actually hired two of the lead developers over at Ubisoft that worked on Rainbow Six Siege, a modern military shooter game, a competitive game. So I think they are. I would like to see that. I mean, SOCOM is a game that I don't have too much experience with, but I will tell you, as a fan of shooters and, military shooters, I would love to see Sony come out and, I would love to see Guerrilla Games come out and see what they have to show with a SOCOM game. So that would be incredibly interesting. But overall, yeah, there's still a lot of conversation going on when it comes to PlayStation right now, even though they've been so quiet. I'm sure most of you saw that ad. And actually, I have to kind of rant about something here for just a second, because I put out a video. It did really well, actually, for me anyway, where I was talking about that ad that Sony put out on their PlayStation channel. And I called it disturbing. I still think it's disturbing, but I've seen so many people comment on that video saying that I'm some kind of snowflake or something because I'm calling it disturbing. And I think people were misunderstanding. It's not literally disturbing, it's really bothering me. It's just more it's a really strange, bizarre commercial. And I do think it was cool. I thought it was neat. But I mean, come on. People are acting like this is normal. What Sony's showing here, live human hearts beating connected to PlayStation's come on. It is disturbing, but that's what makes it cool, And I've seen a lot of comments basically taking that as I guess because I called it disturbing in the title or the thumbnail, people are thinking I'm being a baby about it or something. But yeah, I don't know. 5 soldiers equals PS5. But yeah, those are pretty much all the main topics I have to go over and discuss in the fourth episode of Press Cross Podcast, because I know people want me to call it that. And so we'll go to the chat for a little bit here before ending it. Again, I'm going to try to keep it shorter. To be honest, guys, I don't know if I can continue doing the podcast on Sunday nights. I'm really starting to think that I'm doing it a little bit too late for most people. And I know that there's other people in different demographics who aren't able to, catch it at this time either. So we'll have to see next Sunday. Maybe I'll do it. It'll definitely always be on Sundays, at least as of right now. It will always be on Sundays, but it might have to change. Like, I might have to change the time slot because, I am tired, but not so tired that I don't want to like talk and communicate and everything. But as of right now, this was the best time for me to be able to do it. But I'll see if I can change up the time slot or not. We'll look into that. But I appreciate all you guys showing up here, and 400. I'm happy with the viewers and the engagement. I just think that it seems that the later I go, the more difficult it is for people to, because there a lot of people I think are in the same boat that I am. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's late and you're getting tired, but I still want to make sure I can do it. And I got a busy week usually, so. But I appreciate everybody who does show up. Really means a lot, especially those of you who are leaving the stream a like, and those of you who are donating in super chat. Really goes a long way, and I really do appreciate that. Your whole company is watching the podcast now. Awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad. The Press X podcast. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Is that what I should do now? Is that what I should call it? EX Press X podcast. Maybe I should. I don't know. I mean, I've seen some people say that people may confuse it with an Xbox podcast. I mean, I don't see how you could. You see the button there. You know what I mean? Can't confuse that. That's a PlayStation cross button, I guess, right? So, But yeah, guys, I think I'm going to end it here. It's about an hour, not too bad. Keep it on the shorter side. And some of you, I'm sure, wondering, if I'm going to have any more guests in the future. I probably will. I'll see if I can work on bringing Brown Sugar and maybe Devil Child back as well. Maybe we could even have a stream in the future. I can't promise anything, but maybe I could get them both on at the same time. We could have a whole thing going there and just chill. But there's definitely going to be those times where it's just going to be me, and I hope you guys are cool with that. The Press X podcast. True Witty. MBG, what about 3 in the afternoon? Love the stream. Yeah, I'll have to see about that. See, that's the thing. I always got so many things going on that it's so difficult for me to commit to a time, but I know that committing to a time is, it's an important thing for any podcast, a live podcast, to be successful. And I like doing it live. I like engaging with you guys, with a live chat, and people can watch it afterwards. So I'll see about that. I'll see what I can do. I think 3 in the afternoon would be a great time as well. So I appreciate that super chat. And Mr. Hamster, go get some sleep, man. Your health is more important. Yeah. It's true. I probably need to catch up on some sleep, but when you're busy, and you got to get stuff done, Actually, I don't know. I feel like I got pretty good sleep last night. Maybe it's that situation where if you sleep too much, you end up feeling worse. That's a real thing, and I think that I noticed that with me. Anytime I can actually sleep in and catch up on my sleep, I feel worse for some reason. I don't know what's up with that. Like, they say you need 8 hours or maybe more a night, 9 hours or something, but I don't know. I sometimes I just feel worse. But all right, guys. I'm going to end it here. Before you head out, again, if you could hit the like button, really helps it out. Hopefully this podcast will do well, episode 4, after the fact, and we'll see how many people check it out. And look out for my regular content throughout the week. I'll try to keep the daily content coming, and I will also let you guys know later on in the upcoming week what time I'll move the podcast to, if I move it. And I see Devil Shooter, you say, what happened to the to lift part of the podcast name? You like that? I ended up removing it just because I put out a poll. A lot of people were seemingly getting confused with Press X to lift. They just thought it was either too long, or they were confusing it with a fitness podcast. So I put out a poll asking people to vote, and the overwhelming majority of people said I should just rename it to Press X Podcast or Press Cross. So I figured, why not? It's not a big deal, but hopefully that answers your question. But Good night, guys. Again, hit the like button on your way out, and I will catch you guys next time. Until then, take care.